Welcome back to Ambassador Notes. One of the questions we get sometimes is people who are concerned about a family member, perhaps a sister or a daughter, or one of their close friends is dating a Muslim man. So, what are some things that you should be aware of when your friend, your lady friend, is dating a Muslim man? Well, first of all, this really can be a big problem. There are all sorts of issues that your average American woman does not take into account about Islam and about Islamic cultures that are pretty important and can really be devastating down the road in life. So there's no special formula, but I'm just going to give you some of the main points that you might be able to raise with her and help her to just be aware of these things. Well, the first thing that I would ask is this person spiritually mature? If they're just a secular American who doesn't have any deep connection to the Christian faith, there is less that you can do. A lot of Muslim men, when they're over in the United States, they're very happy to act very secular and, do all sorts of things, not go to mosque and do things that traditionally they would never do back in their homeland. And it's quite common for a Muslim man to just want to have fun, and find a fun girl and have fun, but really not have any intention of keeping the relationship going down the road because, of course, when they want to actually get married, they'll go back to their homeland and probably get married to one of their cousins, which is very common in Islamic societies. That sounds very heartless to say it, but this is a very common thing. Anyone who has worked with single Muslim men in the United States knows this, and they're quite honest about it. Especially with other men, they oftentimes view women simply as things to be enjoyed and to have fun with, and then when you're done with it, you just move on. This is not anything that is secret or that is hard to figure out. Again, if you have spent time with Muslim men, so this is one thing to be aware of. But that having been said, it's not always the case. And sometimes a Muslim man really would like to marry, not only date, but actually marry a Christian woman from the West. Well, first of all, that gets him a visa route or eventually residency and citizenship. So that's very, very valuable in and of itself. And even if he is quite sincere, one thing that you often hear is that, like, well, Islam and Christianity, we're so similar to each other. We have one God who's the creator, who sends prophets, and the main difference is, about Jesus. Well, that is the main difference, but that's like the most important difference. And if you look at everything that Islam denies to Christians, there's no Trinity. The Bible is not valid. Jesus was not crucified. He is not the Son of God. Well, that's the Christian faith right there. Those four things. So whatever else we may have in common, and we do have some things in common. The things that we have in common are not the essential things. And it'll also oftentimes say, well, we'll have our children and we can raise our children here in the States. But let me talk about children a little bit. This is complicated and it's very sensitive. In the Islamic Sharia, if either parent is a Muslim, including if the woman is a Muslim, then the children are automatically Islamic. If you like go visit the family of the man back in any kind of Sharia country, the man has absolute control over what the children can do and whether they can or cannot return. The woman has no rights because she's a Christian by definition. She is just a lesser citizen or just a lesser human being. So, and then this has happened. We've heard of this. My wife and I have heard of this, and there was actually a movie about this happening in Saudi Arabia a long time ago. I think it's called Not Without My Children, and it's precisely about a woman who gets married to a Muslim. They go back to the kingdom, and then they're not able to leave, or she can't leave with her children. So this is a big deal. The children will be Islamic. Another thing that the woman should be aware of if this is a serious relationship that is actually going to result in marriage is that even if the man, while in the United States, is quite happy to lead a rather secular, easygoing life, uh, when he goes back to his home country and he's especially around his parents and especially his mother, there's going to be a huge amount of emotional pressure on the woman to convert to Islam. Imagine, staying with your mother-in-law for a month back in, I'm thinking Egypt, for example, and just every day being like, "Oh, wouldn't things be nice if you were a Muslim? Wouldn't things?" And again, these are things that I've heard of these things actually happening. And then the woman is like, "Okay, well, I'll just do this for the sake of the peace of the family. I'll become a Muslim," and it's not really sincere. But the thing is, in Islam, you don't actually have to have sincerity of heart to genuinely actually convert to Islam. It's not a requisite. And this can just lead to all sorts of problems. Another thing is that Americans are very individualistic. We just tend to think, hey, whatever I want is what goes. Whatever my husband wants is that's what goes. Muslims don't come from individualistic societies. And Americans, they just never even think about this stuff. They come from collectivist societies. So even if the man is quite happy with his wife going to church and having kids, they would not be Christian kids, but having kids who are just broadly speaking secular, non-religious, a-religious, when he gets back to his collectivist country, or what again is quite common, when he brings his parents over to live in the United States, and they would probably live in the same house with them because they will not speak English, probably, and they will probably not learn English because they'll be old to learn English. Then you'll have that. Oh, we should send the grandson to the madrasa. He needs to learn Arabic. He needs to learn how to do the prayers in Arabic. He needs to learn the Fatiha and some of the other Islamic prayers and invocations. And it's just very, very grating. But in Islam and in collectivist cultures, all of this stuff is very, very common. So again, when when your American friend who's a lady, whether she's a devout Christian or secular, is actually dating this Muslim, assuming he doesn't just want to have a girl for fun, which again happens quite often, but if like he wants to actually get married and so on, that she needs to be aware of this. She needs to be aware of this. There's a ton of really important things over the long term. So, in sum, I would I would pray for her, share some of these things with her. If she has any questions, we at IMO are happy to talk with her. I have very, very rarely seen it that a Christian woman and a Muslim man can have a happy marriage. Could it theoretically happen? I suppose so. And that's leaving aside the biblical instruction that Christians should be married to Christians, right? That's another point that I haven't talked on, but I kind of assume that everybody knows that. And of course, for a secular American woman, it's not even going to be an issue. What the Bible says, they're not really going to care. So these are some of the things you got to start thinking about as soon as that happens. Another thing, and I'll wrap up with this, is that Muslim men tend to really appreciate family and the idea of getting married and having children. That's positive. We Christians have lost that. So let's try to learn from Muslims and appreciate marriage. And instead of telling our young men like, "Oh, well, marriage, you can do that when you're in your 40s, focus on your education and traveling around the world and having friends and having fun." And marriage becomes like, and family becomes an afterthought in a lot of American communities. This is also true in many American Christian churches. It shouldn't be like that. We need to be better. So let's go ahead and learn from what Muslims are doing right, and let's recover our own appreciation for marriage and children. And pray for your friend who is dating a Muslim or marrying a Muslim, and share some of these factors and some of these things with her. There's no secret formula because each person is different. I know that. But these are some common characteristics that we've seen throughout the decades.